This is Andrea again. Councilwoman Summers Armstrong, I sent you the link. Did you receive it? Sorry, can you hear me?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I did. And I'm trying to join. And I'm in.
Are you back on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you.
Perfect. So Chair Nelson, we do have quorum.
Okay. Oh, hi, April. Okay, well, since we have a quorum, let's go ahead and start the meeting, call the meeting to order. And first item is calling to order and roll call.
Member Becker?
Here.
Member Bruni?
Present.
Member Kirkpatrick? And then Chair Nielsen
Present.
and Member Summers Armstrong.
Present.
We do have quorum, and members of the public may attend and participate in the Southern Nevada District Board of Health Finance Committee meeting over the telephone. To join, dial 702-907-7151 and enter phone conference ID 969-506-201#. To provide public comment over the telephone, press *5 to raise your hand during the comment period. When called upon, press *6 to unmute your phone. Thank you. We currently do not have anybody online for, oh, sorry. I went ahead. My apologies.
Oh, that's okay. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If y'all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is the first public comment period. It's a period devoted to comments by the general public about those items appearing on the agenda.
Now,
And
we do not have anybody for a public comment.
Okay, we'll close the public comment. Next item is the adoption of the February 24th, 2026 agenda. Does anybody have any questions, changes, anything concerning the agenda? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Motion. This was Nancy. Motion to
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
approve.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. No
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. That passes. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting from November 19th, 2025. Does anybody have any questions, comments, changes to those minutes? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
This is Nancy. Motion to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes as well. Next item is the report discussion action. Move to receive and discuss the fiscal year 2026 budget augmentation and approve recommendations to the Southern Nevada District Board of Health on the February 26th meeting. Turn the time over to who's here?
That would be DJ.
Okay, DJ.
Thank you, Chair Nielsen. For the record, DJ Whitaker, I am the CFO for SNHD. And so today what we're going over is our budget augmentation. This is our first augmentation of the fiscal year 26 budget. So next slide. We always include what a definition of a budget augmentation is in our slides. So this is our procedure for increasing our appropriations of a fund with the express intent of employing previously unbudgeted resources for carrying out our increased appropriations. So this is, we normally do two, and actually the first one's usually done in January, but it was delayed until February. We had a couple of things that were going to take effect in January that we delayed this for, and one of them did not occur, and the other one's kind of still in progress. So we are just bringing it forward now with an anticipation of doing another augmentation in June. Next slide. Okay, and then under Nevada statute, it's unlawful to expend money in excess of an amount appropriated. And so this is our process to make sure that we have appropriation in place to expend our funds. And again, we do have one more in June that we'll try to align everything, but we really do this to stay in alignment with any new grants coming on, changes in our general fund activity. So we're just trying to keep it throughout the year, stay aligned so that we are expending money with approved appropriation. Next slide, please. Okay, so the overview of everything that's in your in the handout in general is, so from a staffing perspective, our staffing for the 26 projection for this augmentation, we're at 871.35 FTE. The adopted budget was 872.5, so just a very small decrease. And our revenues, our general fund revenues are projected for in this augmentation to be 122.7 million. That's an increase of 1.1 million from our adopted budget. And there are some increases and decreases that we'll go over in the subsequent slides that make up that $1.1 million change. Our special revenue funds, which are our grant funds and any special revenue funds that we don't have that are not necessarily a grant, are projected at 56.5 million in the augmentation, and that is actually a decrease of 5.4 million from our fiscal year 26 adopted budget. And if you'll recall, our budgets actually go into the county budget. So last March, we approved that budget, which was right before a few things happened with some of our grants. So the adopted budget did not reflect any of that change that we had last spring. So this will get us aligned more with what we have currently in our grants. And then the expenditures, our general fund expenditures are projected at 122.2 million. That's an increase of 4.9 million from our fiscal year 26 adopted budget. And again, some of that is with changes in our grants, some activity came onto the general fund, and then some other increases in that area. But special revenue funds are projected at 62.3 million, and that is a decrease of 8.4 million from our fiscal year 26 adopted budget. Again, these are reflective of this budget being adopted last March, and then having some changes in our grant activity. Our capital budget, our facility expense is projected at 2 million for fiscal year 26. That's actually an increase from our fiscal year 26 adopted budget, and we'll go into the activity that's creating that increase. Any questions on the overview? We'll dive into some of the detail, but to support some of those numbers. Okay, next slide. Okay, we always include the organization chart. There are no changes from the original that we put in the FY26 adopted budget, but here's some of the detail of the current organization chart. Next slide. Just graphically to show what we just went over. So our adopted budget had $183.5 million of total revenue. So this does include just our grant funds and our general fund. And then the decrease to 179.2 million in total. So that's the two numbers that I presented on the prior slide. The net of the general fund and the special revenue fund would be what's here. And you can see our property taxes, that change, that was something I brought in June, always right after we get the approved adopted budget. The county, that's based on a tentative number. And then we shortly thereafter get the number from the county for the actual amount. And we do try to bring that in June, July, just to get it approved. So this does reflect that change. The adopted budget did not, but then the augmentation does include that increase. And you'll see the rest of the activities don't change too significantly, other than the grants, which is that that decrease that I mentioned on the prior. Next slide. Okay, and then this is just a representation by each of our functional divisions. So you can see environmental health stays similar to where they were. Our FQHC, actually, we have a drop in that area, and some of that is related to grants. Again, this is general fund and our grant activity. Disease surveillance also drops about 3.1 million. Community health also, and all of these, the disease surveillance and community health activities, we do have the ELC grant that terminated last year after we adopted the budget, so that there's some of that is the impact that you'll be seeing here. Next slide. So in general, our special revenues decreased by 5.4 million due to the removal of several grants. So we did, the biggest one would be the ELC enhanced detection, and that was about 13.2 million. And then we did have Ryan White about 1.4 million down, and then that is offset by in the new budget we did include $2.7 million of our Senate Bill 118. So Senate Bill 118 funding actually terminates June 30th of this year. So we went ahead and captured the remainder of that grant activity in the augmentation, and then we also received the state public health funds. Also, that was after we got the budget in place. Then in August, we received this interlocal that came out of the public health funds. And then also we did receive an award on one of our grants, state opioid response, of $2 million. So you can see the ELC grant is coming off, and then the Senate Bill 118 and state public health fund money is coming on. So in the grant funds, it's a net decrease of 5.4 million. Again, then the property tax revenue actually came in higher than the original amount that we were using, and so that is incorporated here. And then just in general, our pharmacy revenue is a major component of our charges for services, and that's at 35.2 million. And that stayed somewhat static from adopted to now, and then we will shore all of that up in our next augmentation. Next slide. Okay, now we'll look at the expenditures. So you can see our expenditure were at 187.9 million. In the augmentation, we're looking at 184.5. We do show the capital going up by that amount that we discussed earlier. And in the capital would be some of our activity with the lab expansion under SB 118 would be coming into play there as well. Our salaries went down, and we'll discuss that, but in our salary amounts, we did establish a hiring freeze when we saw the landscape of our grants changing, and so I would say that it's a limited hiring freeze. So, critical positions and that do go through a process, and so we do hire, but for the majority of them, we are on a freeze, and so we do have savings in that area, and that impacts taxes and benefits as well. So you can see we went down from 37 million to 34.8 million for taxes and benefits, and then salaries went down 74.4 million to 72.8. A lot of the other activity remained the same. Services and supplies also had a drop of just over $1 million, and that would be related. In our ELC grant, we did have some supplies. So this is a combined revenue and general fund. So that's in general, the changes that we have in our expenditure types. Next slide. Okay, and then this just shows by division our functional units, where the changes are reflected. You can see FQHC, we did have an award, what we anticipated, a grant that would have covered 8 positions. So you can see in their area, some of that does incorporate removing those positions because that grant did not come in. And then the other areas are a little bit disease surveillance and control. We have a drop of 3 million. Again, that is reflective of losing some of those grant funds. And then administration is up in this case for expenses. Our facilities lies under administration, so any change in our capital for our lab expansion would go in that area. But net is a decrease of 3.4. Next slide. Okay, so general fund and special revenue, we're at 184.5 million compared to 187.9, a decrease of 3.4 million total. Our special revenue expenditures decreased in our ELC and Ryan White, and then we did have the offset again with the Senate Bill 118. So our most of our funds are reimbursement grants. So when we recognize the expenditures, usually when we recognize the grant, so the expenditures kind of follow the revenue for our grant funds. And then our general fund expenditures increased $1.8 million, again, due to a transfer of some of our supplies and equipment when we removed some of our grant funding that we had to incorporate into the general fund. Our total salaries and benefits for general and grant funds is at 107.6 million. That is a decrease. And some of that is due to approximately, you'll remember, we had 870 approximately positions that were approved. And we were carrying 70 vacant positions when we put the hiring freeze on. And so that first 6 months of the year did generate a savings that is, you can see that it's a $3.5 million savings, and our whole decrease was 3.8. And we have included those positions for the remainder of the fiscal year, just in the event that we need to fill those. But we will take care of that differential if we do a second augmentation. Next slide. Please slow me down if I'm going too fast. These slides, we just show our revenue and expenditures. Sorry, the revenue, looks like my expenditure. The orange is the expenditures. So you can see this is without, with our cost allocation. So administration shows we have our property tax is in that 60.4 million. And this shows the revenue compared to the expense for each functional division. And this does include their allocation of costs from administration. And then the next slide shows before we take into account our cost allocation from admin. So I put both slides in so that you can see the difference once we do our cost allocation versus just the pure numbers from the divisions. Next slide. Our capital fund, this is where we do our improvements, our equipment, our vehicle purchases. So every year, this is funded from a transfer from our general fund. So that is reflected in the general fund reductions. And then we bring the funds into the capital project fund and do like any HVAC, those types of activities. So here you can see our IT budget did not change, but we did have a change in our improvements and facilities. And this, our parking lot is being resurfaced this year. And the increase in here is related to that activity, to an increase in cost of what we originally thought last year. And so now we have better information to include that here, as well as I think there's a audio visual project that we're doing in the Red Rock conference room that is included in this as well. Next slide, please. And from the personnel side, we just like to put in a comparison of our FTE. So in our adopted budget, you can see the 872.5. You can see, even though it's a very slight change, we had some movement between the divisions. We had an increase in our public health and preventive care, and as we're incorporating our street medicine program. So we had an increase there. The FQHC, we did reduce that for the Ryan White grant. We had 8 staff on that. And that's netted against an addition of a pharmacist in that area. Disease surveillance and control, you see an increase. We had an addition of our HAI program. So as we brought on our state public health fund, we had some increase here. So just a net change of minus 1.15, but it is made up of a variety of things.
Hey,
And
DJ.
then the bottom, yes.
Sorry, before you go on, I was just had a question concerning the difference in the FTEs. Very close to what was budgeted, but you mentioned earlier that you have 70 vacant positions. So did we budget for vacant positions? Is that why this change is so small?
It is, right. So because they're still in the expense budget, we leave them in the count.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that would be the maximum level. And right now, like I said, it's we were above 800 for a little while, but with the hiring freeze, the expectation is that. But if we lift any of that and start hiring, we want to make sure that the positions are accounted for and within appropriation. So we don't have to bring it back in.
Thank you. Chandra, go ahead.
Just to make sure that I'm clarified on that, those 70 positions are still on the books, as is the funding to support hiring if the freeze is lifted.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
What the expenditures don't include is any savings for that first half of the year. So it's really taking the positions that those 70 positions and only from January forward, right? So we have eliminated the expenditure out of the budget for what has already occurred. Thank you for the questions. So the bottom part of this chart just shows our adopted to the augmented and the reflection of the special revenue fund. So our grant funding versus general fund. So you can see that we did have some activity that moved on to the general fund in this case. And again, it's reflective of what's above the FQHC. Those 8 of those 8 positions would have been on grant funding, so you would see a reduction as we took those out. So it's just a breakdown so you can see what our relative to the funding source as to where our total FTE lie. Next slide. There we go. So this slide just shows our net change in the forms that are included in your packets that we provide to the county anytime we do an augmentation. They're attached to the resolution and the petition. Our beginning fund balance, when we adopted the budget, we were anticipating that our fund balance would land for fiscal year in 25, which was June 30th, 25. Sorry, our beginning balance would be at 47.1 million. And our actuals came in at 54.8 million. And if you'll recall that, we did not use our contingency that we had on the books. And we also had some one-time funding that Dr. Lockett presented in his presentation last month, I think. So we did have some changes. So we had a change in our beginning fund balance, as well as a change in what we anticipate our revenues and expenditures. So right now, our adopted budget was that we would have an ending fund balance of 39.6 million. But our estimated with this augmentation would be that we would be at 53.8 million. So the about $7 million change you see in our adopted versus our actual, plus the changes in what you're seeing today with the revenues and expenses. So that is a large change. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Included in this augmentation is in the adopted budget, we did not have our contingency. We put a $3 million contingency in for any unanticipated, like if we get another grant, then we would have the ability or the authorization already built in the contingency. And so we are adding that in. So in the expenditures, other uses, part of that 133 million you see there is just adding in a 3 million contingency. It is a contingency, so if it's not needed, it will not be utilized. And so that would be a reduction in that line item. And part of the reason we put the contingency in, a few years ago, we did have an audit finding related to not having enough appropriation authority for some of the expenditures that kind of came in at the end of the year. So we put this in place as a safety net to make sure that we don't run up against that again. So, and then next slide. So our special revenue funds, you can see we do, the change in fund balance is normally zero. Sometimes we have a little residual when we finish our books. So our actuals are at 121,000. Normally your revenues equal your expenditures and your grant funds. But with allocations and that type of thing, sometimes it's a timing issue that we will out to the next year. And so you can see here our adopted to the estimated, again, there's that reduction in our grant funds, some of that elimination of prior activity. Also included in the revenue other part of that is the transfer that we would have to cover. So if our grants reduced, then when we do our cost allocation, there's less needed from the general fund to cover that, any difference between the indirects that we can collect in our cost allocation. And so some of that is running through here. So right now we still anticipate just reduced revenue and expense to hopefully net to zero. And so that's the activity for the special revenue fund. Next slide. Okay, capital projects fund. You can see we do have a fund balance in there. Sometimes we transfer the funds to the capital projects fund, and those projects don't get done in a single year, and so that actually carries over. And so we did not include an additional transfer because we had a sufficient fund balance. So you can see a change in fund balance of 194,000. That's just it's not needed because we had fund balance to cover that addition that we had earlier. Next slide. So in your packet, there will be a petition and 3 resolutions because we are changing the general fund, special revenue fund, and capital fund from the original adopted. And then we will provide the copies to Clark County and the state. They review them and provide us any feedback that is needed there. Any questions? That threw a lot of information at you.
Any questions for DJ on the presentation?
This is Nancy. No questions, but thank you for the very thorough, comprehensive presentation. And great job on the ending fund balance. I like that.
Yeah, DJ, thank you for presenting these. As DJ indicated, several years ago, we got in trouble for not doing the appropriate augmentation. So we now see a couple of augmentations annually to avoid that issue. So if there are no further questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve petition 27-26 related to the budget augmentation to the Southern Nevada Health District. 1, General Fund Resolution 0126, 2, Special Revenue Fund Resolution 0226, and 3, Capital Fund Resolution 0326 for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2026 as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Member Bruni. I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, I believe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. All right. Thank you very much. With that, we move to the second public comment period. It's a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments about matters relevant to the board's jurisdiction. Andrea, do we have anybody from the public?
No, we do not have anyone online for a second public comment.
Okay, we'll close the second public comment period and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Andrea,
Yes.
so can you talk to folks